I just shut it all down. And unmute and start your video. And we'll give folks a couple of minutes in case they got kicked out earlier to rejoin us. For this class, we are going to be using our food processor. So if you haven't already pulled that out and assembled it, go ahead and do that. Okay, I guess we can go ahead and get started. We'll go over our mise en place first. And that's all of the ingredients and the equipment that we're going to need to make our falafel today. So we're going to start with some chickpeas, canned chickpeas that were rinsed and drained. We're also going to use about a cup, maybe cup and a half of fresh herbs. This is mostly parsley, but also has some mint and cilantro in there. Parsley is a little more traditional, but adding mint and cilantro is just going to give us more flavor. We've got some garlic cloves. We'll put 2 or 3 garlic cloves into our food processor as well. And you're going to need about 3 tablespoons of flour, which I have right here in this bowl. For our seasoning, we're going to use some cumin and coriander if you have it. Coriander is made from the seed of the cilantro plant. Same plant, different spice. And I'm actually going to use a za'atar blend instead of coriander. It has some sesame seeds and other herbs in it, and I really like the way it comes out in the falafel. We'll need a bit of onion. This is a small Vidalia onion, and I'll probably only use about 1/3 of it. If you drained canned beans and reserve that liquid, you can use that if your falafel mix looks a little thick, or a tablespoon or 2 of water will do the trick. For cooking our falafel, we'll need a skillet and some vegetable oil. I'll go ahead and put that aside. We'll need a rubber spatula and a mixing bowl, a couple of measuring spoons, and some salt and pepper. So those are all of the main ingredients that we'll need to pull our falafel together. And we're going to use 2 different prep techniques today. The first is going to use the food processor to mix everything up, chop and mix, and that's going to make our falafel batter. Then we'll empty that out into our mixing bowl, and then we're going to cook with the vegetable oil and pan fry our falafel. They can either be deep fried, little falafel balls, or baked. That's another method, and we're going to kind of split the middle by pan frying them. So that's another little cooking technique that we'll get to in a bit. And depending on how experienced of a cook you are, you may need an adult's help to maneuver the hot oil. It's a little tricky, but I'm going to show you some tips to be safe while working with hot oil. Okay, so we should be ready to begin. Everybody is muted right now. So if you want to communicate, open up the chat room by clicking the chat bubble at the bottom of the screen and just type in anything over there. I'll type in a little test message. Hello. So that's our chat box. And I'll type in our steps as we go. That's also for anyone who joins us. They can jump over to the chat and not feel behind. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your food processor is assembled properly, because if all of the sensors aren't aligned, a lot of the, especially the high-end food processors, they won't even turn on. And if you have dumped a bunch of food in there, that means you have to dump everything out, line it up, and start all over again. So line up your food processor by making sure the jar is in place, the blade is untacked, and you may even have a little piece like this that the blade goes on. Make sure all of that is in place and properly aligned, and that your top snaps into place and that the feeder snaps into place. And then test your food processor by just hitting the pulse button. If it comes on, you're good. If you're making this in a Vitamix or a Ninja, like a large jar on a blender, same rules apply. You want to make sure everything is aligned and ready to go before you put food into the jar. Okay, at this point, we're good to go. So you can see what I'm doing over here in our big screen. I'm going to take off the top, add the chickpeas. This is sort of an all-in recipe. All of the ingredients are going to go right in. The chickpeas go in. I'm going to add a couple cloves of garlic right in. I'm going to take about a third of that Vidalia onion like we talked about. Actually, I'll take a half because Vidalia's onions are really sweet and this one is pretty small. So I'll go ahead and throw that in there. Just trimming off the ends and removing that outer skin that feels a lot like paper. And because it's going in the food processor, I don't have to do a whole lot of chopping here. Just kind of minimize it. And the food processor will do all the work. Okay, I also want to do a quick chop of these fresh herbs. Again, this is mostly parsley with a little bit of mint and cilantro, and I gave everything a good rinse because sometimes fresh herbs are gritty, especially cilantro. I'm just giving it a rough chop like that, and in it goes. Okay, so I'll type in our chat box what we've got so far. We add the drained chickpeas plus half a small onion, 3 cloves of garlic, and if you're using minced garlic, let's say a teaspoon. Okay, and to that we added about 1 to 1.5 cups of fresh herbs. Mostly parsley, but also some mint and cilantro. Those are optional. Okay, we're going to keep adding to the jar with our spices. We're going to add a teaspoon of cumin. Okay, and a tablespoon of the za'atar. Now, if you don't have za'atar, you could use coriander, but I encourage you to seek it out in the grocery store, order it online if you like Middle Eastern flavors. It definitely adds a nice taste to the falafel, but it's good on chicken, beans, especially beans. Okay, so we added a teaspoon of cumin and 1 tablespoon of the za'atar. Some people like just a pinch of cinnamon in their falafel. So if you do, I'd go with like a 1/4 teaspoon. You don't want to dominate the other flavors, and cinnamon can be kind of strong. So a little 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon in there is nice. Let's get some salt and pepper in here. I'm going with 1 teaspoon of salt. There we go. And a few grinds from my pepper mill. We'll say a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. We are almost done with adding things to the falafel mix. The last thing to go in is going to be those 3 tablespoons of flour. You want to sprinkle that around so it's not one flour lump. Okay, now you're ready to add the top back to your food processor, and you're going to want to pulse it a couple of times to get everything moving together. So I'm going to place this on mute because it's loud when I do that, and I'm just going to pulse it just a few times. Then I'm going to scrape the sides with my rubber spatula. And this is just to make sure we're getting everything that could be maybe stuck down by the blade. Mostly just the beans. It looks good, mixed pretty well. So I'm gonna run the food processor for a little while. My kids like the falafel to not be necessarily so chunky like it is right now. So I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of liquid. I'm using the reserve liquid from the can of beans, but you can use water. And this is gonna help add a little more moisture. And when I run the food processor now, the falafel mix is just going to get a little more smooth. This is a personal preference. Some people prefer the chunkiness of the falafel. Other people like it a little more smooth. So you decide how you want that to go. And then run your food processor for just a couple of minutes, like 2 minutes, just so everything can come together. So I'm going to mute and do that. And now you want to check your batter to make sure it will hold into a patty. And the way you do that, use a tablespoon to take out some of your batter, put it in your hand, and squeeze it. If it holds its form, it's good, because our goal is really to make some little small patties, little tiny falafel burgers that we're going to be able to fry. So if yours holds together, that's the texture you're looking for. Okay, so at this point, we're going to turn our falafel batter out into the mixing bowl, and use your rubber spatula to do that. So the first thing you want to do is pull your blade out and set that aside. Use the rubber spatula to scrape out your falafel batter. Get all up into the nooks and crannies there. Okay. And this is just going to make it easier for us to form our patties. So you can move the food processor out of the way, and we'll get set up to start cooking in just a second. If you're not caught up to where I am, I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way, type a little message in the chat box, and let me know that I need to pause for a few minutes while you get caught up, because I want us to do the next part together, okay? Okay, I will pause. You let me know when you're ready for the next step, once you get everything into your mixing bowl. That's why I like to see the video so I can kind of see where everyone is. It helps me with the pacing. But that's okay. Take your time and let me know when you're ready. Yes, actually, because what we're really doing is a bean patty, and you can season it up any way you like. If you don't have coriander, you could use the cumin. You could add a little spice with a little bit of cayenne just to kick it up, just a touch. Smoked paprika can go in there, about a half tablespoon of smoked paprika, and that's going to give you a lovely smoky flavor as well. I think what else would go? Again, some people do like a touch of cinnamon, a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon. You could use some garlic powder and onion powder, just a half teaspoon of each to bump up the flavor a little bit. If you wanted to be a little more adventurous, you could add a half teaspoon of curry powder. So all of those are different dried herbs that can go in there that would help enhance the flavor of the chickpeas. That's a good question. So I'm just getting prepared for our next part, which will be cooking. I'm moving all that other stuff out of the way. And anytime you're doing something with a batter, it's always a good idea to rinse out your food processor or bowls as soon as you can so things don't set up in there and get crusty. So as you can probably see, I've gotten rid of the food processor and all those bowls and spoons. And this is all we're going to need for the rest of the recipe, for the cooking part of the recipe. I'm also going to get a plate that is going to be where we set these lovely little falafel when they do come out of the pan. And I'm just going to put some paper towels or napkins on there to help absorb any excess oil because we are going to be pan frying. There we go. Once you get your mix all together and in a mixing bowl, we'll be ready to form our little falafel patties. And I'm going to do that right here on the cutting board. I'm going to use a 1 tablespoon measure because each patty is 2 tablespoons. So this will help me keep all the patties the same size. And this recipe makes about 12 patties. Okay, are we about ready to start the cooking process? So our next step is going to be to make the patties. They're 2 tablespoons each. And this is what that looks like. Just scoop out 2 tablespoons into your hand, be a little ball, flatten it, and then smooth out the edges, just like a little hamburger. There you go. We're going to line these up on our cutting board until we use up all the batter. And again, it will make about 12 patties. Just flatten and smooth, flatten and shape, and then right onto the cutting board. You can make this falafel mix to this point and freeze it. Then you just need to thaw it out and scoop however many falafels you want and cook them off at a later date. And as I said earlier, you can bake them. They go into a 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes, and you'll want to flip them halfway through. But I like to pan fry them so that they get a nice crispy exterior. And as we're cooking them, you'll see that the exterior gets quite dark. They're not burned, that's just how the beans darken up when they're fried. And the interior will have a green tinge to it. That's always a sign of a good falafel, if the inside is green, because that shows that someone put some fresh herbs in there to brighten up that flavor. Okay, pat and shape. I'm using my thumbs to kind of keep it in its shape. Just like that. And imagine if you had a whole lot of falafel batter, you'd want to make a little bit of an assembly line so you had some help shaping your little patties. There we go. Almost there. I think I got maybe one more in here. Yep. There we go. And when we cook these, we want to do them in batches so that the pan is not overcrowded. And that is important because it also helps us flip them over safely and easily. So once we're finished with this part, you're going to want to rinse your hands off and come back and get ready to cook. Okay, so I will pause here to give you a chance to get to this point, and let me know once you've formed all of your falafel patties. So normally I get 12 patties out of this. I made them a little bigger today, and I ended up with 10 patties. Our next step is going to be to heat a 1/3 cup of vegetable oil into our skillet, and that's what we're going to use to fry our falafel. You're going to heat that over medium heat. So add a 1/3 cup of oil to your skillet. And turn it on over medium heat. If it's a little watery, yes, you can add more chickpeas. If it's just a little watery, you may want to try another tablespoon of flour. But if it's quite thin, like you can't form it, you can add another 1/2 can of chickpeas, and that should pull it together. Did you drain the chickpeas before you put them in the food processor? Okay. Another can of chickpeas will definitely thicken it up. But what you're also going to want to do is add more of the dry spice because you will dilute the flavor. Oh, okay. Yeah. So when you open up your can, it's good to just dump the whole thing out and then rinse those beans in a colander, kind of shake them up. And that'll help make a drier batter next time. But for this time, if you can add more beans, that will help. And they don't have to be chickpeas. You can add some white beans. You can add black beans. If you just have some other beans, make sure you drain them well, rinse them off, and drain them well, and then try a 1/2 can first. Okay. And if that didn't pull it together, then I would say add the whole can. So now that you've got those additional beans in there, add some additional spices so that you have a good flavor. Now I want to give you a tip about heating the oil. When you tilt the pan, eventually you'll see the oil start to shimmer like a breeze blowing across the lake. That lets you know your oil is ready. At that point, I'm going to take just these little chickpea crumbs and drop it in the oil, and if it sizzles, then my oil's hot. The thing about this, though, is you have to watch your oil because every stove is different. So my medium may be hotter or cooler than your medium. If you don't have a sizzle, you need to turn up the heat. If it's sizzling too hard and you start to notice smoke coming from your oil, it's too hot. You need to turn down your heat. But every time you add a chickpea patty to your oil, it's going to drop the temperature. So that's the other reason we don't really want to crowd the pan. We want to kind of keep this somewhere in that 350 zone. So I'm tilting the skillet and I'm just looking for that shimmer to happen to let me know that my oil is ready. I'm going to cook these in batches of probably 4, looks like will fit, and give my pan plenty of room. That will help me be able to flip it over safely. So I'll type in that next step. I'm going to heat 1/3 cup of cooking oil in a skillet over medium heat. And the oil is ready when it shimmers slightly. Overheating oil will burn. So we're just on the look for that slight shimmer. And I'm seeing it now. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but I tilt the skillet slightly. And you can kind of just barely see it shimmering on the edges. Let's try it again. Yeah, the camera's not really picking it up. But like I said, if I just take a little crumb of falafel and drop it in there, you can see that it's sizzling. So that lets me know my oil is pretty much ready. Now, hot oil is something you never want to just drop something into or throw anything into because the hot oil will splatter. And for that reason, pan frying intimidates people. But if you just use your spatula to scoop up your falafel patty and gently place it in the oil, there's no splatter. There's nothing to be afraid of. The spatula gives you a couple extra inches so that your hands don't have to be directly over that hot oil. So I encourage you to just use a spatula to gently transfer maybe 4, maybe 5 falafels into your skillet. Notice I wasn't moving fast. I wasn't dropping it in there. I was moving slowly and gently transferring everything to prevent the splatter. So I'll type that step. The other reason you don't want to crowd the skillet is if you're not experienced with turning and flipping things in a pan, you just naturally need more room to do it well. Someone who is an experienced cook could probably put 8 falafel in there and be fine. But I want you guys to be safe, and I want you to take your time and learn these cooking methods in a safe, easy way. So they're going to cook about 3 minutes on each side. And you'll be able to see the edges get a nice dark brown, nice and crispy dark brown. That's when you know it's time to flip them over. So they're just sizzling away and they're a happy place right now. Now that you've added the additional beans, are you able to make patties out of your falafel? Great. That's what you're looking for. It's like making meatballs or burgers, but with beans, which is also a great source of protein and a good source of fiber. So these are actually kind of filling. And while they're cooking, you can be thinking about what condiments and sides you're going to serve your falafel with. For example, I have pita bread, so I can make little pita pockets. I'll warm up my pita bread, cut it in half, and then I can stuff it with the falafel and some chopped up cucumbers and tomatoes and hummus, and that could be my lunch. If you have some tzatziki sauce, that's fantastic with falafel. That's usually made out of yogurt or sour cream with some dill, maybe a little bit of garlic, maybe a touch of lemon, and a shredded cucumber. You could just have your falafel patties and a nice little side salad. See how golden they are once you flip them over? It smells good too. All right, I'm gonna get a few more in while those are going. Got the nice golden brown ones over there. Add a few more. Again, use the spatula. And there's no splattering, no popping. Your arms are safe. I think I get one more in there. That's a little close. All right, so while we've got couple more minutes for these to cook, I'm gonna go ahead and sort of set up a little platter for my falafel. Break this down. With some pita bread here, so I'm just going to warm that up in my little toaster oven. And what else? I have some cucumber I can slice up.
Legos painting. White on paper.
There we go. Get some nice cucumber slices going here. How about some tomato? That'd be nice, right? I need to sharpen that knife. Get some tomato wedges, go with our cucumber. I might even have some olives that I can add to the mix. Be nice little pinches of this and that. Think of things that kind of go into a Greek salad. All of those things would be a great combination with your falafel. So I'm going to remove these. They're nice and crisp on the exterior. You can see that nice dark golden brown color on both sides. That's what we're looking for. Just like that. And then this plate with the paper towels or the napkins will absorb any excess oil. These last two in. I'll take my pan a little bit here. I bet these guys are ready to flip over. Well, they need a little longer. Okay. Get my hummus ready. And a plate to serve on. There we go. So I'll set this up so we've got like maybe a little hummus in the middle with all the vegetables and falafels going around the side. Just think about how creative you could be when you're setting up your falafel plate. I might use some sour cream. I think I'm out of tzatziki sauce, but sour cream might be nice. We'll do a little dollop of that as well. And if you had some nice thick labna yogurt, that would do well. Has a nice cooling effect. Okay. Get my tomatoes on one side, cucumbers on the other. Make a nice pretty platter. That way everyone in your family can kind of take bits and pieces of what they like and make their own personalized falafel plate. It's a lot more fun when you make it personal. And I found that, especially with kids, you guys are a lot more willing to try something new if you can customize it to your own taste. Okay, I might sprinkle a little seasoning over this, not just to make it pretty, but to also make it delicious. So we talked earlier about maybe using a little smoked paprika. If you didn't have coriander, this would be a great place for that smoked paprika to go, if I could find it. Too many spices. But it's not a bad problem to have, is it? Well, in lieu of finding it, I'll go with a little chili powder. How about that? We could sprinkle that right over the hummus and the tomatoes and the sour cream, a little chili powder. And we start arranging the falafel. Need a few more minutes to cook on them. But you see how your platter kind of comes together, and you got something that you can serve the whole family, and everyone can just take what they like from there, and it's a nice way to serve it. Along with my warm pita bread. Tuck that into the corners like that. Okay, how are you guys doing? Are your falafel sizzling away in the pan? Have you had success using the spatula to transfer them over there safely? Okay, start to remove these. Let them drain a few minutes, and then our falafel platter will be done. Okay, and to make it pretty, I can garnish it with a little fresh parsley. Because we did use parsley as an ingredient, it makes sense to use it in the garnish as well. A couple of leaves of parsley. Add some pop. Stack these over here, nice and crisp. I'm kind of stacking them on their sides so that they don't crowd each other and they can stay nice and crisp. Let's see about this little guy here. Yeah, cook that one on that side a little more. Then I'm all done. So again, if your heat starts, your oil starts to smoke a little bit, that means you need to turn your heat down. If you're not getting a sizzle, you need to turn your heat up. And the falafel should just take about 3 minutes on each side to cook. Okay, once they're all done, turn your heat off and then move that pan off of that hot eye so that the carryover heat doesn't cause your oil to burn. And let's get our parsley leaves arranged in here. A couple of spaces. Just like so. There you go. So that is my finished falafel platter. And the family can come and pick what they like off of there. If you have any feta cheese or pickled onions, olives, all of that would be wonderful additions to the things that you could pull together for your falafel. Again, you can make sandwiches out of it. You could serve it with a salad. And in order, if you have leftovers, in order to reheat them, you just want to toast them kind of crispy in a toaster oven. And they should crisp up for you on the edges. So I'll type a few of the options that you may want to use to go with your patties. Cucumbers, tomatoes, pita bread. You can also look at feta cheese, hummus, tzatziki sauce, yogurt or sour cream, if you want to sprinkle some spices, you could go with smoked paprika, chili powder, a little more cumin. And for garnishes, think about parsley, olives, or even banana peppers, or any kind of peppers. We'll just say peppers. There you go. So that is our tzatziki class. Not our tzatziki class. I got tzatziki on my mind. That's our falafel class. I hope your falafel are coming along well. I'd love to see a picture of your finished product. The yogurt sauce and tahini sauce, they're not part of this recipe, but yes, they definitely could be garnishes that or sauces that you whip together to go along with it. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Good. Um, so yeah, the falafel are really flexible, and there's so many different ways you could serve them. This one is just easy to um, serve a family style because you're putting it on a platter. Oh yes, for the sauce. Okay, let me go back to the actual recipe on that. Yeah, they just whip together in a bowl. Hold on a second. Let me pull it up so I can see it. All right. Yeah. So yeah, with the yogurt sauce, you literally measure everything into a bowl, stir it together. And same thing with the tahini sauce. Just measure everything in the bowl and stir it together. I would say with the tahini sauce, start with the warm water in the tahini. That way you can dissolve the tahini into the warm water because depending on the brand you have, some tahini is really thick. Mix it well too because it likes to separate. Yeah, those recipes were included on there as sort of a bonus to go along with because some people would find some of these ingredients a little hard to come by right now. Um, so I just added those in. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. I hope your tahini is an enjoyable, your tahini, I hope your falafel is an enjoyable experience. If you make a pretty plate or a nice little platter, please take a picture and email it to me. I'd love to see it. And thanks for joining us here in the Captain Planet Zoom room. I hope to see you guys later at another date. We will have cooking classes that continue through May and possibly June since a lot of summer camps have been canceled. All right, you guys have a great day and enjoy your lunch. And I'll see you next time. You're welcome. Bye.